Okay, so wow, we're like 6 weeks into the season already. It feels like we just started, but it's basically the halfway point. I'm here with the trade czar, Alex.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Yeah, so we'll start by covering the pretty exciting trades from this week. I think we left off. Where did we leave off? I
I think
believe.
the last one we did was October 8th, the
Right.
GNT Taylor.
Yep. Yep.
And now we got kind of a flurry of small trades this week, but
Small in some ways, but large in other ways. uh,
that's right.
yeah, let's
That's
let's
right.
let's start with the first one on the list. It says Mars receives Dalton Kincaid from LIC. Harlem receives two free agent budget from Mars, and LIC receives the Eagles defense and one free agent budget from Mars. So let's just start team by team. For Mars, to sum up what came in and what went out. It's basically three free agent budget out for Dalton Kincaid, right? What do you make of that for Mars?
That's right. I mean, when you got a chance to get another player on the same team that you're getting all your players from,
Right,
you got
right.
to do it.
The
You know, for
Megazord adds
four,
like
yeah, 4X
extra
Megazord here.
extra pieces, right? Like there are configurations where they like turn one of the dinosaurs into like a sword or like a shield, and the Dalton Kincaid, I guess, probably more of a shield than a sword, but either, either way, yeah, I mean, this is just a double down, triple down, quadruple down on the kind
Yeah,
of all on one team gambit, and yeah, like when the Bills are good and have a really shootout fantasy matchup more than just an easy fantasy matchup. I think you get some uh you know, fireworks where it can single-handedly win you a matchup. But we saw the most recent week that the Bills Falcons game, that's kind of the downside, right? If the game turns out to be kind of unexpectedly low scoring or ugly, you're kind of using three roster spots in a game where your team that team is only scoring 14 or something. Like there's just not too much that's
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
come out of
right.
that,
Only
right?
two
So
touchdowns to go around.
yeah, I mean, what do you think of the price in general? I guess I mean it's
I
there's not a
I
lot
guess
to
I'm
say.
not
Yeah.
a yeah, I'm not a huge Kincaid guy this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's still not, he's just not playing. Like, he's not playing that much, even
Mm-hmm.
when he's healthy.
Yep.
He's not playing every snap, and he's not running a ton of routes. And so, like, he has touchdowns this year, but I don't know.
Right.
I think
So yeah,
I
yeah.
think that
My problem with this is also that even with four or however many pieces of the Bills you have, like it's not like Kincaid and Shakir will hoover up all the like receiving touchdowns. Like you're still gonna be leaking a good number because Josh Allen just spreads it out a good amount, and
Mhm,
neither
mhm,
Kincaid or Shakir are the touchdown guys. So I'm not sure that this is the team where you really want to have two pass game
right,
targets starting in the
right.
same game. Of course, Kincaid isn't probably the every week starting tight end for Mars, so it's just an option and depth, and that's not the end of the world. I don't think three fab is too much to pay for that, but I do agree. I do think it would be a different story if it was like the old Chiefs where it was Tyreek and Kelsey and Mahomes and like right like that kind of two receiving targets and a QB. I mean, you're pretty much getting just so much from that passing game whenever it hits. I just don't think Kincaid and Shakir have that same kind of spread in that receiving or pass attack, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of how I feel too.
Right.
Um,
Um, yeah, and then we could just move on. Harlem real quick. Gets two free agent budget in. Philadelphia out. I'll bring up the matchups real
yeah,
quick. Yeah, you can.
right. Yeah, I kind of have to see who they're
All right.
playing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I mean, two seems
yeah,
like
they're playing.
the standard price for when people don't really want to like negotiate over little like bits and pieces, right? It's like two, and
Yeah,
it's like whatever. I don't care enough to turn that into one. I don't care enough to turn that into three. Sure, like I whatever. Yeah, two is fine. They play at Minnesota and Giants, and then they have a bye week. So that's probably as far as they'll be used. They play the Packers next, and then Detroit and Dallas, which I probably would guess
yeah,
you'll
run
find better
Monday.
option.
Yeah.
So it's a 2 week
Mhm.
option. Minnesota and Giants. Are you personally high on that like matchup spread, or you have
I think
any
it's all
opinion?
right. I think it's the way I actually, I mean, I felt like looking at, like, I think part of the reason a lot of defenses got traded this week is that the waivers look a little dry
For sure, for
for
sure.
this week.
Yep.
Like, I took a look at it. I was in the defensive mix. Obviously,
Yep.
we'll get to that,
Hmm.
but yeah, I took a look at it. I felt like it's like, ugh, like there's not a lot there that to get excited about. Whereas, like, I feel like most of this year it kind of has been pretty fruitful. Like in the waivers, there's a lot of bad offenses, so I feel
Hmm.
like there have been more choices. But for whatever reason, this week it just didn't really like the looks of it. Um, so I think that's probably what happened. I think it's just like I'd rather just not get in the muck there and go ahead and get Philly for cheap.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
think.
really one, it's really it's Philly for uh or I guess for two, yeah, because there's Kincaid for three and then
Yeah.
two going back. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
that covers LIC is basically getting, the defense we're just talking about, Philadelphia, and one free agent budget. I think it's probably pretty good to get three free agent budget from Kincaid. Not a huge win, but tight ends really seem to be so week to week that I don't think that's a bad price to get back. Let me just see how much he was bid for on waivers in the first place. Let's see if they made a profit. Yeah, so two free agent budget to claim them, and basically gaining a whole free agent budget if you count the Eagles defense as a two free agent budget asset. Very, very tiny win, but LIC will take those this year, I believe. It's good to get little bits of value in those years where the big picture stuff really isn't panning out as well as you would like.
Yep,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
good. It's a good enough on that one.
Yeah.
Uh,
The next trade is basically a bigger version of wider version
uh-huh.
at least of
Yeah,
of
wider.
basically what we just saw. Yeah, we'll go real quick. Great Kills gets the Colts defense and sends out um Cleveland defense. Just speaking about that part, I think probably in a vacuum Cleveland defense it might be worth more, but they were also 9 salary, so I understood that, it was gonna be harder of a sell for
Mhm.
certain teams to just, fit that in. So I didn't really bother haggling like, "Oh, like, I think this defense is a dollar better," or whatever, right? I was just like, "If you can get me the free agent budget that it takes me to get this defense that I'm trying to, stash for, next week, then, I'm cool with that," right? And, the matchup is Colts versus Titans next week, which I think is a little bit shakier just because they're changing their coach. Maybe, that's not the home run matchup that it could be. But Denver does have the Cowboys next week, which is probably one of the few um, offensive matchups that we want to definitely avoid. And Cleveland had New England, which I think is outright just a tougher matchup, especially the way Drake May is playing. So you could quibble over dollar in either direction, but we were fine with just getting something that fit better for our squad. Do you disagree with any of that?
No, I think Colts is a good stash for next week.
Yeah, yeah.
Easy. Just
Strictly,
turn
yeah,
Cleveland into something. You weren't going to play him this week,
yep.
obviously, and because you have a better choice. So
Yeah.
makes sense for somebody to they're probably in the top 10 this week, maybe like top 15 or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
So, but good for someone to have them.
Yeah. And then Harlem gets 4 free agent budget total, just sending out Joe Flacco only, right? Um,
Yep. Yep, my four, but basically my four, and then that got changed around.
right, right,
But
right.
originally,
Yeah.
the original was four for Flacco. Yeah, yeah.
How much did Flacco?
I think they bid three on. I think they made a one. I think they made a
Yeah.
one
Okay.
profit on that. They did three last week, and
Mhm.
he's
Yeah, quick
he
flip.
looked a little better than expected. I would
Yeah,
say
yeah,
looked about
yeah.
$1 better than expected.
Well, I would say exactly $1 better than expected.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to see. I guess the context you could give is Harlem getting a little bit healthier at QB maybe if JJ McCarthy is coming back. So, even if Jaden Daniels or Daniel Jones.
not on there, but McCarthy's not on there. Is still on Debbie, I think.
Right, right. True. But it gives them a
Is
little
a
bit
more
more safety in case of like an emergency injury or whatever, right? Closer to it, right? So, um, you know, uh, maybe they could have still rostered another quarterback, but I think they're expecting pretty soon to, not need that much safety at it as Daniels gets further away from his injury. And, Daniel Jones is obviously a lot steadier of a week to week option than Fields. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for them. Just clean one free agent budget pickup. Um, Not much more, I would say. I would probably say it's more interesting from your point of view, where you are getting Joe Flacco in for free agent budget out in total, right? It's just going
Yep,
somewhere else.
yep, four total.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah, because you sent out Pittsburgh defense.
I'm getting two back from Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
basically
you
two from.
spoke a little bit about this on Discord, but do you want to explain kind of the connection I would
Yeah,
say
yeah.
between Flacco and
My
because duo seem to have trouble grasping it, so there might be someone else also. Yeah.
so here's my thinking going into this week. Well, it's two things. So Kyler obviously got injured. Has a bye next week, so
Yep.
he's a maybe for this week.
Hmm.
Questionable for this week, but I would not be surprised if they sit him.
Yeah, with the
Uh,
buy, it's always like, yeah,
with
you
the
might as
bye
well
coming
take
up,
another
if you could
week.
get
Yeah.
two for one,
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised. And it seems like one of those kind of like foot injuries that's
Hmm.
just like,
Yeah.
people get these in the NFL now a lot, and
Yeah.
it's like whenever they have these heel injuries, it's just like
Yeah.
every week questionable, questionable,
Yeah.
questionable.
Yeah.
Lingers. They saw don't practice. It's
Yeah.
painful. You got to play through the pain. Is Kyler really going to play through pain? I don't know. It's not the personality I appreciate with him most of the time. Um, so yeah, so I was like, okay, I don't really want to chance it. I'd rather just get someone in. And then I was like last week I was like, well, let's see, maybe Cam Ward will kind of turn it around. Like had a good matchup with the
Hmm.
Raiders,
Hmm.
and I don't know, he's just so unreliable. Like that
Yeah.
offense is just so
I
unreliable right
mean,
now.
more than anything, I think the play calling last week was so bad. Like it kind of
Yeah,
looked like
abysmal.
everybody involved in the offense, head coach included, had kind of just given up and been like, yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know, I'm just gonna throw out like these plays, and I'm not gonna think too much about it." And like everybody was like running it seemingly half speed, except for Ward, who I think tries a lot for to his credit, but like it's just not enough when there's not a ton of talent. The scheme isn't really interesting. There's
Mhm.
just not much he can do, even if he could. Um,
Yeah, it's right. He makes the throws, but like the ball goes where it's supposed. Like like his arm
yeah,
is
yeah,
clearly very.
yeah,
And I think just everything else is
yeah,
so hard to tell
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
But yeah, so then I was like, okay, well, Flacco, I feel like is like about as high variance as you can get with these kinds of things. And since Duo is probably gonna score 180 or
Yep,
whatever,
yeah,
I'm gonna need something to go right.
yeah.
Um, so like at least Flacco, I think compared to like all the other people who are available, like
Mhm,
like starting Ward or getting Jacoby Brissett
mhm,
or
mhm.
someone like
Yeah,
that, or Carson Wentz maybe is going to be starting this week. It's just like those guys are not gonna get you 35
No.
points. But like Flacco, like I could imagine Chase
Just
having 200
yeah,
yards.
just by
It,
nature of his wide receivers being his weapons being so good, you could at least picture, like Jake Browning put up
he's
like
gonna throw it 40 times probably.
yeah,
Like
Jake
so you
Browning put
know,
up like, 24 and a half and like 25 with garbage time. Like you don't really have to
yeah.
be good necessarily to even like put up fantasy points with guys as
Mhm.
dangerous as Jamar Chase and T Higgins. So I definitely get the, you're going for ceiling plays, right? And then
Going for stealing.
yeah, and then how
Exactly.
does the Steelers defense?
It's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks in a row that I'm probably gonna have to play Flacco, and it's pretty. He has like decent matchup both
Yep.
weeks. So
Yeah.
uh, that was the idea there. Felt like a better price than anyone. I asked about Rodgers because I also thought maybe a little bit of a ceiling game here
Mhm.
for Rodgers.
Mhm.
Against the
Bad
Bengals'
defense,
terrible
yep.
defense,
Yep.
and then Rodgers has Green Bay next week, and I was like, okay, well maybe he's maybe he's pulling out the whatever secret plays he's got in
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
playbook are coming out
I
against
I
Green Bay. So
dude,
I was like, man,
I almost forgot that Aaron Rodgers was like a pack. Like I've just been like thinking of him as like a Jet, like even though like his the majority of his career is the Packers, but
right,
it
did
feels
two
like
seasons
yeah, it feels
or
like he
whatever.
has more beef with the Jets, even though honestly the Packers are the one who dumped him after a pretty long he actually did stuff for
Yeah,
them.
yeah. He
But
wanted to, right?
yeah,
He wanted to keep playing.
yeah. I guess that's kind of just like how the Jets kind of just attract that kind of like it just lingers a lot more. Whereas like uh, cleaner organizations, you just kind of like forget like, oh, this guy's probably pissed at this organization. You just think, oh, this guy's pissed at the Jets, like Sam Darnold or like whoever. It just kind of feels like they would be
Right.
more pissed for some reason. But yeah, valid. Yeah, no, I think yeah, the sneaky part is I think at 2-4 you're not out of it. You're very much on life support still, but like like
Yeah, this is like a must win. I think. I mean,
for
I
sure.
0-5 in the division. It would
Yeah, yeah.
really,
That one,
you
yeah,
know,
that would be really tough. And
it's
yeah,
a bit
like
like a must win.
yeah.
So
But
yeah,
yeah, I do
pulling
think
out,
yeah, I do think the
sending some
win
fad.
gave you a little bit of hope and if you lose this week or next week or whatever, then it's pretty much where you thought you were going to be like 2 weeks ago, so nothing too lost. You
I
didn't.
mean, it's still. I mean, also still just trying to stay out of the 9-10 game
Oh,
is
for
a
sure. Yeah, yeah.
goal in and of itself that
Yeah.
you can't take for granted.
For sure. Yeah, that's also a pretty good point. Like you want to be in the mix for, the consolation bracket and you have to stay out of 9-10 and um like people might think like, "Oh, this team is 1-5, like they don't care about it." Like those teams often care more about like these like middle wins because uh staying out of certain seating is a lot more important, whereas if you're 5-1, maybe like a
Mhm,
specific week isn't
mhm.
gonna feel as do or die until like maybe you lose one or two, So, yeah, I think it's just a sign of how important every week is for every team in the league, and your moves I think kind of just line up perfectly with your plan on trying to maximize your chances of winning the next 2 weeks at least, right?
Yep.
And then
Yep.
New
Very much.
England, they got out pretty good here. I think they sent out the Colts defense, who they weren't, I don't think, have a good matchup this week. And they got in the Steelers defense, who, on paper, obviously the Bengals could go off, but yeah, that's probably still one of the better matchups, at least on paper. It's high variance, I think, because there are dangerous players such as Chase and Higgins, but like you said, the waivers I didn't think had a ton of good defensive matchups. So, uh, Steelers defense in and Colts defense, who I don't think they were going to use this week, out. I think that's fairly
Yeah.
easy win for
Seems
them. They got to win.
pretty clean.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still looking to like get a foothold in the playoff race. So it's not like they have the luxury to be looking too far ahead either. So. I think that part is fairly simple. And then the last one, Williston Park gets Cleveland defense in. and they sent two free agent budget out. Like we said, two free agent budget just feels like the I don't want to negotiate too much over something that isn't worth my time amount. They had Bills defense, so they don't really have a defense on their roster that they could even play this week, and Browns against who is it? Miami seems like as good of a matchup as really anything out there on waivers, I would say. Tua throws a lot of picks. I think there's definitely a chance. I think Dolphins games have maybe the highest chances for like a pick six, just because like how
Uh,
little how little velocity he gets out on like his pick
yeah,
sometimes. Like like
yeah,
other teams like the DB like has to dive to like make the pick and then they're touchdown. Whereas with Tua, the ball's like floating there and every DB is like looking to jump it and like take it the other way, right? So um, I think like for that reason, like you can definitely get some really high scores. I think playing against Dolphins, even if they're not the worst, you know, at moving the ball, maybe. So yeah, I mean that makes plenty of sense. I think a little bit boring for a five-team trade, but you can kind of see how. I mean, it's rare that even five teams are still this engaged at this point in the season. Like, it is a sign of how competitive it is, and also, how important weeks are. No matter where you are in the standings, like you said, like you're 2-4. Even if you don't make playoffs, you're still trying to scrap out of the 9 and 10 spots, and the same for the 1 and 5 teams. Which is why you still get trades like this. I think in a lot of other leagues, like by this point, if you're 1 and 5, like most guys are not really
yeah. You're checked
bothering
out.
to they're like whatever, like maybe they'll set lineups and that's like the best you could hope for out of them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think this five team just more than anything shows that level of engagement. I think that is a trademark of our league. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next trade. Finally, no defenses involved. Actually, an asset that we haven't really seen move for a while, a pick. Um, to put this in context, Mars actually initiated the poach offer about a week ago, I believe, right? Um, and then it was a kind of long period where I think Williston Park also superseded his poach attempt, and then Harlem ended up matching. I think expressly for the purpose of trading for something higher than the compensation pick that they would get, and as you can see, they got a second round pick, which is outright earlier than a comp pick. So uh, what do you think? Do you think Kendry Miller worth a second round pick? If you're, I would say more from Mars's point of view because they're kind of,
Yeah,
I would say risking more. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting trade. I think Kendra Miller with the now sort of guaranteed contract,
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed money for next year. Um, yeah, it's an interesting trade, right? Because you'd think that Mars would be looking for someone who's like gonna do something right now.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, like given the 2 game losing streak
Yep.
and the this sort of like mega bye week thing
Yep.
this week
Yep.
and feeling like a pretty important game this week, you'd kind of be looking for someone who's like doing something this week,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And Kendra Miller, I think it's like kind of like maybe in a few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
maybe next year,
Yeah.
maybe Kamara's gone next year. It seems like Kamara's probably not going to get traded. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe that was
Those are the
that's the
signs.
up,
Yeah.
but feels like the news kind of shifted on that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'm sort of like, well, I don't think Kendra Miller is going to be in the lineup this week,
Yeah.
from Mars, and then and then you kind of don't have an ass. I mean, I guess you could try to retrade Kendra Miller
Mm-hmm.
later, but you also now don't have your second round pick to trade at the deadline
Yep.
when you're trying to pick up
Yeah,
something
that
important.
that could be a difference maker because a lot of the times if it's close, it'll be like, okay, what can you sweeten the pot with? Like if two assets are close enough, sometimes It will come down to like, okay, what kind of draft capital can you throw in to make it a little bit a little bit more uh, attractive, because there's a limit to how much you can keep, right? So like, throwing in another keeper a lot of times doesn't do anything for the person that might be selling, or whatever kind of trade it is. So I think having high draft capital stocked up to trade during those moments is big, and he did lose this. Here's what I heard a little bit, that this trade was kind of like agreed to upon before this most recent week, right? Um, I wonder, I don't have the answer to this. I wonder if it was agreed in principle enough where there was just no discussion of like whether it was going to go through or not, regardless of what happened to the players. Because I think if Kendra Miller went, you know, off this most recent week, we might be saying like, oh, this is like a very smart trade for Mars to get him for that little. But he kind of had like a meh game. He had some touches, but it didn't tilt any further in his favor in that backfield. They do still have Taysom Hill. Kamara's still there and didn't miss the game due to injury. So I do wonder if maybe it was agreed to completely, like before this week happened, and I do wonder if Mars would have changed their mind if they could, because, like you said, they're on their second loss in a row, have a lot of bye weeks. They might have thought that Kendra Miller was gonna be maybe a little bit more playable looking going into this week than he is. So I am curious as to whether that was the case or not. But otherwise, I do think I agree. It doesn't make a ton of sense for Mars, just in terms of what position I think they're in. So it kind of has to be a strong belief, I think, in Kendra Miller as a talent, and like eventually just winning out um, a bigger and bigger role, right? So that one, I'm not as sure about whether that's how it's going to pan out, but I agree that circumstance wise, it doesn't seem like the cleanest fit for where Mars is right now.
Yeah, it's like I think the value is okay. Like
Yeah.
I think I have no problem with the value here,
Hmm.
and again, it's obviously not that different for Harlem than just like letting the poach go through. Like
Hmm.
if Mars, assuming that second round pick is like going to average out to 2.7 or two
Yeah.
eight or 2.9
Yeah.
something, like um that's not that much different than the comp pick,
Hmm.
but uh yeah, just for Mark for so I think that makes sense. I think if they just weren't that high on Miller and they weren't that excited about having the gear, they obviously Harlem has a million guys to keep for next year already. So
Yeah.
like having an extra
Yeah.
guy is probably not you're gonna have to trade somebody eventually.
Yeah.
So like that I think makes sense. But and they like cleaned up on their second round draft picks
Yeah.
this year.
Yep.
So so getting the extra pick is smart too. But yeah, I think for Harlem, I think kind of makes sense. Like I like definitely get it.
Hmm.
I think Mars it made more sense last. I think what you're saying probably makes sense. Like it
Yeah.
made more sense
Right.
last
Right.
week, and maybe it felt kind of like um, worst case, I can probably trade
Right. Right.
Miller like
And best
instead of
case,
whatever would have been the second round pick. I just
yeah.
throw this in
Yeah.
instead to some sort of like losing
Yeah. Yeah.
rebuilding team kind of thing. But
And best case, like you get him
it really depends.
before.
Really depends. I mean, these are it's so high risk with these things because it just like you really have to see if that guy's going to get more touches over the
Right.
next
It can
12.
flip. Yeah, the perceived value of any guy can flip really quickly. Like
Mhm.
one minute you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a nice asset, and then 2 weeks later you're like, shit, I want to get this guy off my roster, but I don't want to like outright cut him and take the dead cap. Like it could definitely be that kind of situation, and I think personally it would make more sense for me for Mars if they had basically agreed to this deal before this week, because
Yeah,
I think if
agreed.
they
Agreed.
went back to negotiation table right now, I think he could probably give a little bit less, or maybe he doesn't even want him. Um, whereas you know Harlem might have matched with the safety of knowing, okay, like I have a firm offer for this, so I'm just, there's no risk in it for them to match if they can trust that that offer is already agreed to, right? So that would be my guess, but we'll see if
Yeah.
they speak to that later. And then we could
Yeah, it'd
just
be interesting to see what John ends up doing the next uh in waivers this. I feel like he's got kind of an interesting
mhm,
waiver
mhm.
situation. Just
Yeah,
in
yeah.
one of those awkward spots where you're like, I got a lot of questionable
Right.
guys and a lot of people fly, and I need to somehow make a lineup,
Yeah.
like
It's
guarantee I
tough
have.
because you don't want to like kind of overextend to try to make, this week work out when it might be kind of like tough anyway. Like there it's not always, but there are certain like waiver decisions that can affect your team negatively long term while you're trying to kind of max out your chances of winning this week. So it's a fine line to walk where um on one hand, this week is obviously very important for their division, tiebreak, head to head, all that. But also at the same time, you kind of had to know that the week where Derrick Henry and like four of your Bills are being on bye, that was always going to be tough. I don't think any week is ever a complete lost cause, but you have to think, okay, like my team's not going to be at its full strength that week, right? So like do you try to save, like like how much do you try to save it, like sometimes like, oh, do I go guaranteeing for this guy to play because I really need somebody to like have safe carries or touches this week, but at the risk of maybe needing to cut that guy later or it being useless later. Like there's a lot, I think going on in the Mars front office right now, trying to figure out what their best strategy will be for this week.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then we could,
Excited to see it.
yep, and then we can move on to the last trade. Actually, this is not the last
Two
trade.
more, two more.
Two more
Yeah,
trade.
two more.
This is a trade that you're involved in. You get the Packers defense and Braylon Allen, and Virginia receives 5 free agent budget. Just talk us through your rationale for uh what you were looking for in this trade, and yeah, like how
Yeah,
it came
yeah. So
together.
still kind of rolling my upside strategy
Yeah, yeah.
here. That I'm kind of looking at who's available on defenses, and
Mhm.
I feel like just if it, of the sort of available teams, I feel like this maybe is like a give up game for the Cardinals. Like the
Mhm.
vibes are really bad there
Mhm.
right now. Um, Kyler probably out.
Mhm.
Brissett obviously was like competent last week,
Yep.
but the Colts D was pretty banged up, so
Mhm.
that was somewhat of an easier matchup. And sometimes there's that thing where it's like new quarterback, and
Yeah,
you
I
know
think the Colts probably spent at least half the week preparing for Kyler. At least, like, I don't think he wasn't 100% ruled out until like later in the week, right? So
yeah, later.
I would guess the schemes to try to contain Kyler are quite different than trying to face Brissett. So I think that probably also played into it. Yeah, go on with your.
Yeah, so then I was just like, I feel like this is like a real upside play. The
Oh yeah,
Packers feel
Harrison
like they've
also concussed. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, Harrison I think will be out
Yep.
most likely.
Mhm.
So it's it's and then obviously the running backs are all injured, so it's
Mhm.
Michael
Mhm.
Carter
Yeah.
and
Even Bam
Bam.
Knight is hurt too, I think, and
Right. Also, yeah,
yeah.
also missing practice. So I don't know. It just feels like we're on the verge of kind of a give up for the card. Like the Cardinals, I thought looked pretty decent the first couple games of the season, and it just like things have just spiraled so quickly
Mhm.
over there, and yeah, I just think there's a real giving up on the coaches kind of energy.
Yep.
Um, there. So I was like, okay, maybe Green Bay has a little bit. Yeah, I know they haven't had huge fantasy games on
Mhm.
defense in a little while, but I still think they're really good.
Mhm.
So yeah, and even like last week they were like the Bengals had like 50 yards, in the first
Yeah.
half or
Yeah.
whatever, and then kind of got it going when it was like 17-3.
Yeah.
Um, but Yeah, so that was kind of my thinking. Is I wanted Green Bay. I think Hua finds kind of tricky ways to sort of get stuff to work out for him, but
Hmm.
like the Braylon Allen thing doesn't really hurt me. Like I was like, well, for me, it doesn't matter that much. Like I'm gonna cut this guy
Right.
and take the 10-day cap, and
How
I'm way under.
how early in talks was Braylon Allen, part of the deal? Like, was it?
I asked him about the if the Seahawks were available or
Yep.
the Packers, because he had both and they both look pretty good. Like they both have like okay. I think the Packers match was a lot better than the Seahawks matchup this
Hmm.
week, but they both have like kind of on paper maybe similar
Yeah,
matchups.
good
So
defenses, and the offenses have shaky aspects at least. Yeah, I do agree that
yeah,
the cards are closer to maybe like all out, like, the shit hitting the fan.
like it just yeah, it just feels you just get those games every
Yeah.
year. There's like one of those games where it's just like the team just gave up.
Hmm.
Just feels like it might be that. But yeah. Anyway, so then I was like, okay, well, let me know before waivers, obviously. And then I was just thinking Fab or whatever. I didn't look that closely at it.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Would you take Braylon Allen?" I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." Um, and then I probably could have talked down the Fab a little bit, but
Hmm.
but I don't know. I was at work and the clock was ticking, and
Right.
you know
Right.
how it is with these. So I
Yeah,
was just
because
like, whatever.
you have to beat the clock for
Yeah, for the wait
yeah,
for
yeah,
waivers
waivers,
because
yeah,
it's otherwise it's kind of awkward with the like
roster
then I
spot,
need to
yeah, yeah.
leave a spot open for Braylon Allen to
Hmm.
go in, and I've got also have one of these like a lot of questionable people, and it's going to be like a bit of a complex waiver day, and so I'm like
Yep.
I don't want to be fighting wasting a spot or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was kind of like I probably could have talked down the Fab a bit, but
Yeah.
but I wanted Green Bay. That was really my target,
Yep.
and I think just then like they have a few good men. Like this is probably a defense I can hold for a while. So
Yep. I
so
think
hopefully it ends up saving me the money later.
Yeah, I think 100%, your rationale is spot on. You're not really taking hits in any ways that really are going to affect you. You're at 286 salary, so the eating the salary is definitely not really that much of a factor for you. I do think you could probably given up less free agent budget in exchange for taking on Braylon Allen. But like you said, there's not that much time to like hammer out, moving back and forth on the free agent budget. Um, I will say though, like this is probably as cleanly as this could have worked out for Hua, like from his point of view. Um, just in the fact that, Braylon Allen, not a huge contract, but fully guaranteed 10. That would affect a team that, is eventually maybe going to contend. He probably didn't want to take that 10 cut, and it was the right move to hold on until he could ship him off. And even the Packers defense, 14 salary, like obviously for you it doesn't matter, but I think for Hua, if certain teams didn't show interest in him, it was gonna maybe kind of be annoying to them uh, at some point. Possibly, it depends. Like they kind of were underwhelming a couple weeks. Obviously, looked good in a couple of the earlier weeks of the season. So that could definitely swing either way. But like I think regardless of what the Packers defense do, I think Virginia will probably be okay getting rid of the $14 commitment just because that could be a $7 cut against their cap. And to that, like this was, this happens every year at some point. This is honestly, I think, one of the later times it's happened, but this was the first time that I got a complaint from somebody hitting me up in DMs and being like, "Wow, I can't believe like Hua got out from the Braylon Allen money and all that for so cheap." Because I know a couple of other teams have been trying to dump negative assets, and I think the problem is they've really didn't run into the right timing and the right match of pieces that I think Hua found here, where it is attractive to you and it doesn't matter to you. And some of these other teams that were complaining, I think they were trying to peddle their stuff at a time where more teams were conscious of cap and stuff. But I do want to say I did get my first like griping from a couple of teams being like wow, I can't believe Hua not only dumped Braylon Allen, but also got five free agent budget for a pretty expensive defense that hasn't necessarily looked top of the line. I do think they're probably one of the most talented defenses, so I do understand why you targeted them. But I did find it funny that I got some messages like that, and more than a negative towards like anything, I just think Virginia is very good at finding when things line up for them and the other team to be open to like taking on stuff like that. And I think that's probably their biggest strength over, a lot of other teams. I think last year, you know, the Laporta thing was also like that, where they kind of were, in the right position at the right time to kind of jump on a deal that made a lot of sense for them, a deal that probably wasn't a factor for most of the year, but he just stays so connected and gets creative with what he can throw in on each side that people can complain, but it is a repeatable skill, I think, from Virginia. So I
Yeah,
will.
I'll weigh in on that a little bit.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so I will say there's definitely a like Wednesday at 3 o'clock is a
Mm-hmm.
great time to
100%.
um just throw out some weird shit,
Yep, yep.
because it's kind of like, well, I don't know, this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like seems all right. I don't know. I think I didn't realize that people are trying to move all their dead cap. Like I don't think I've gotten offered any dead cap
Yeah, I think
the
I
whole
think it
year.
was earlier in the year. I
Uh,
think Jake Browning got cut for 9 dead cap, which is
yeah,
one
I didn't
less.
get offered.
Right,
I didn't
right.
get
I'm not saying,
that.
yeah, I'm not saying that people are finding like, people just. I know a lot of people just didn't think that they could move it that easily. And to be fair, earlier in the season, like you just don't have the same pieces, and like your team is not in the same position where you're like, not caring about cap as much. I think it just comes together at certain timings, and like Virginia is very good at kind of being ready to like strike when that timing is available to them. And I that's what I told the people that were like surprised at the value. I do think you could have probably given up a
I
little
could
bit.
have probably gotten the fab down. I completely
Right,
agree. I could have got the
right,
fab
yeah,
down.
yeah, that was.
I think my thought was like getting. Now here's how I would put it: is that last week Green Bay was so good that
Mhm.
everybody was bidding on it, right? This was
True.
like, oh, this is such a good defense. This is an actual asset, right? This is like a real
Yeah,
thing. So
yeah,
like getting a real thing for essentially for nothing,
yeah,
for five fab and uh uh dead cap that doesn't
right,
really affect me.
right.
Is not that bad,
I don't
right? That
I
seems
don't
good.
disagree at all.
So
I don't disagree at all. Yeah.
again, I will say I agree. I could have got the fab down. I don't think I realized exactly what Hua's whole cap situation. Like I don't think I'd put together like, oh, he's got a bunch of dead cap already, and then so he's sort of stuck with this thing, and it's like getting rid of it's so important. I don't think I'd really put that together. So that's kind of on me, and also probably it has to do with it being 3 o'clock on
Yeah, yeah.
Wednesday at work.
That's a very good point.
Um, but so I will say to everyone else, if you want to catch me in a bad trade, try and get me at three
Yeah.
o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Great time to come up with something. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's like the Hua phobia.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so strong.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so strong,
Well, I will
and
say, yeah, this one, I don't care about. I do think, like, yeah, I mean, you just said it, like, you probably could have given a lot less fab, but I don't think anything, that's really gonna affect anything beyond, this week is really happened here. So I think people are just, I think Kawhi is just resourceful, right? Like he just knows like what he can
yeah,
like
yeah.
stick. Like some people just don't even think to like offer in like, oh, let me throw in,
Oh
my
yeah, he doesn't care. I mean, he just is relentlessly trying stuff,
right,
right? So like
right.
that also is obviously repeatable. So, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that all the time. You don't
Yeah,
want everyone to
yeah,
be
no,
like
it's
that.
everybody's
Um,
specific style. I think also like that's
yeah,
squad style. Like if you want to be that style, then you can be that style. But like it gets him good stuff like in this sense. But it obviously takes him more effort to like, be combing and be constantly kind of like on the lookout for that. So, I don't hate the play, I hate the game. Like I think a lot of teams.
Everyone sees it from the like the Hua perspective, and it's like, oh well, the
Right,
Hua,
yeah.
he got rid of this thing you didn't want,
Right.
whatever. But
He's
it's
like the
like
Chiefs at this point where whether it's warranted or not, like, just the Chiefs winning so much now, like any ref thing, like, and to be fair, yeah, they do get a lot of like, ref love, and Hua does get a lot of like, trades that kind of feel a little bit shaky, but the fact that they've won so much on the backs of stuff like that now, like, you know puts a microscope on even lesser trades,
yeah,
I
I
think.
think
So
that's right. I think that's right. And it is what it is. I think it's what may if you want to put me in the tribunal again, feel free.
no, no, I
I'm
think you learned
always
your lesson.
available.
I think
I'm ready.
this one was way better thought out than you trying to avoid the Laporta cap,
Yeah, I mean,
by
hey,
that much.
Lad has not been that good. Lad
No,
kind of not
you're
for
right,
this
but
season.
I do think you
I
overvalued.
got out at the right time.
Maybe. Uh, but yeah, I don't think this is. I get why people message me almost instantly, but I personally thought this was a different uh kind of. This is just kind of being opportunistic more than being like underhanded or like sneaky about like what you're kind of doing. Like I think trading, you have to find what other teams might value. Like at certain points of the year, teams are going to value cap space and dead cap and stuff, and at different parts, they're going to value that less, right? And same with free agent budget. At some points of the season, free agent budget doesn't really swing anything, and then sometimes in certain situations it could swing a lot. Same for defenses, same for picks. So I think like as owners, I think everybody has to kind of be like trying to think in the shoes of other trade partners, like, oh, okay, like what is this team trying to accomplish? Like what can they uh what will they give up on a little bit to make way in this situation? And for you, you're in a position where cap doesn't matter as much. You're at 286. There's realistically not a ton that's gonna like be hard for you to fit in eventually, even if you do make a turnaround. Like it's definitely not the same impact as trying to trade a $14 defense to Mars, or even Wilson Park, who are at 330 or 340, right? Like those teams are. There's probably not you know a combination of picks that could even convince them to take on a $14 Packers defense. But you, with no defense to play this week, and a week um, waiver wire for defenses, you're the perfect team that makes sense for expensive but potentially high end and very talented defense, right? So it's just a matter of finding what needs line up with what you're trying to do, and like also tailoring your offers and like your trade talks to kind of like go up the alley that person needs. So I thought this one was very different from previous trades that people were complaining about. This one, I think, um I will give everyone, and you have to, like, 5 fab plus Braylon Allen. Probably could have been a little bit less fab, but in the end, like, people would have not been like, oh, okay, this trade is fine if it was only like 2 fab, right? Like they did, they're definitely feeling a certain way about how Hua finds trades that line up so well. But I think part of it is people have to get better at um, trying to see it from the other person's point of view, and be opportunistic and ready to swoop in and make the offers like he does.
Yep, I think that's
Yeah,
right.
but I
I
mean
think that's
that's it's a lot of words to for
yeah.
a trade that I don't think is
I
that
will
good.
say, if Law wins like 2 games, and all of a sudden everybody is just like, "Oh God, here it
I
comes!
I mean,
Here
I
we
I mean
go! It's
he
happening!
made
The season's
he made
over!"
finals 4 out of 5 years. I think people are right to be vigilant, but in this case, there's not really much foul play or really anything bigger than anyone else could have made this trade and it would have been fine. It's just the Virginia target on their back right now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
let's move on. I think we've
Let's
said
get there.
plenty
I
about.
am I am available for insults and tomato throwing
Yeah.
as much as
Yeah,
anyone
don't don't
pleases. So
don't don't
feel
take it to me. I
free
can't
up.
do anything. Take it to Alex and
Straight
complain.
to straight to my DMs, you know.
uh,
Uh,
nah, but
yeah.
people weren't like, you know, all out griping either. They were just like, "Oh wow, I can't believe."
I got some of it too. I got
Okay,
some of it too.
okay, okay. Well, okay. Well, at least everyone knows now. um, and then the last trade, this also made it right under the buzzer for the 4 p.m. deadline, soft deadline, I guess. On Wednesday to get trades in before waivers. Greg Kills gets Chris Godwin, and New England gets 6 free agent budget. This kind of just came together because New England is really backed up with injuries right now. They were pretty much just offering a couple of their lower end roster guys to just clear up some space because they need to, they wanted to refresh some of the pieces that they were holding on their bench. So we made an offer for Godwin. Didn't really haggle too much. My thinking with Godwin is I don't think he's a high percentage play whatsoever. I think Egbuka's emergence this year really puts in doubt whether even if Godwin does get healthy, like what kind of role is it going to be? It's really hard to tell. I think Mike Evans is going to come back. It's just frankly he's like probably less guaranteed than um, Evans and Egbuka to receive enough attention to be like really playable. Um, but we actually have kind of the opposite problem where uh, we don't have guys to park on IR. So, for us, we were kind of looking for a guy to do. And then with Baker Mayfield, like, there's a natural stack. You never know if Egbuka or Mike Evans gets hurt longer term or whatever. And, that stack could be actually valuable. So for us, yeah, we thought it was worth a punt. Um, yeah, I mean, what do you think either way on the value of that?
Well, yeah, I think I get it. I feel like six seemed a little high to me. I guess just at first glance, just because I'm sort of the same thing where it's like I don't love the news
Yeah,
about Godwin right
yeah,
now,
I'm with
but
you. Yep.
it's a non-guaranteed contract, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So worst case, it's like okay, looks like he's not going to play again this year, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and he was getting target. You know, the games he did play, he did get targets. So
Yeah.
like there is at least
Yeah. I think the
you know
bigger issue
something.
is like his injury just might be one that he's not gonna really feel 100% really at any point this year.
I don't like when it's like he had a leg injury and then it's like, oh, he's
Yeah.
still got kind of like
Right.
a I don't know,
Yeah.
something wrong with the leg
Yeah.
again, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's
I
like
think yeah, so the
you know,
major yeah. So I'm all with that. The major factors were only making 9, so, free cut if
yeah, it's
we
easy
eventually
out
need
if
to.
you
We also had the most free agent budget at the time of the trade.
mhm,
Had
mhm.
traded 0 free agent budget all year, so we were kind of like, doing well on those fronts. And the Baker Mayfield potential stack if all these things like go well and like he ends up the second option there because Evans re-aggravates or something whatever happens. That's probably why I wasn't gonna haggle too much. And then we came up against the 4 p.m. deadline, and I didn't really want to like hold out for one less free agent budget like just for purposes of that. And yeah, we didn't have guys to park on our IR, so it was kind of a wasted roster spot if we didn't get him. So for us, if he had any sort of like salary guarantee, we definitely probably wouldn't have offered that much. But at that point, we were rich on free agent budget, and the needs kind of lined up, right? Like one team is trying to work their way through a ton of injuries and they have more guys than they could park. And for us, we kind of want to park somebody with a modicum of upside, and we have a lot of rage and budget relative to a lot of teams. So six might be a little bit high, but also in this case, you see how it kind of lines up and it makes sense for both teams. So yeah, I think this is just another example of kind of what we talked about in the quad trade. Like you kind of just have to know um, what certain teams are looking for and what that's why trades are so interesting. Like you might completely disagree with giving up six fab for whatever, but some other team might see it a completely different way, and it really depends on what kind of team you have, what kind of roster you have, what kind of assets you have. Um, yeah. So I mean, yeah, we know that it could very well just be, six fab thrown away. I don't have high hopes for this turning out to be a piece that we start every week. But while we have the open IR spot, we figured, it's better than just kind of like wasting the spot. So yeah,
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah, good set of moves today. I think, like you
yeah,
said, testament to how how active everybody is, which
yeah,
is always fun to see.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I
a
mean,
mix of weird little things going on that
yeah,
only make sense
yeah.
to someone who understands all the complexities of this
Exactly.
league. So
It's
it's always
it's such
fun.
a fun discussion over freaking defenses and like Flacco and like
Yeah, yeah,
free agent
yeah.
budget, and we're talking about like how like how
Like we're
like
in this league where defenses score 25 points,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So even though obviously there's randomness to it, it's hard to guess, but like it
Right.
feels really high stakes. Getting the right defense, it makes
Oh,
the
oh, for
difference a lot
sure,
of the
for sure,
time,
for sure, for sure.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I
Score
think
25 or score negative 5, right? Negative
yeah. No,
8.
I
Like
mean
you
the
really got
spread
like a
is
30 plus point range on
yeah,
these
the spread
things.
is really honestly one of the biggest swing factors of every matchup every week. Like I think that's partially why a lot of like, bad teams can sometimes upset good teams. Like you just catch the wrong, like not even having a bad defense, but just like a good defense just has the wrong kind of day, or vice versa. And like, it can be, 30, 40 point swing in a matchup between 150 and 200. That's like, very, very variable. And I think that makes it interesting. Like there's, like we could say teams are huge favorites, but you always know that it can flip based on like just oh, this guy has a really good defensive matchup. Like if my defense doesn't put up 20, I feel like I'm starting in like a 30 point hole, or like there are those weeks. So I think that definitely does keep matchups alive even like later in the season where um teams are heavier favorites over others and stuff. Um and yeah, I think yeah, so people, I think it's good that people are complaining though, because people are it means people still care a lot about like
Yeah,
yeah, stuff like
yeah.
that. And it's good to have opinions, but I do think like this one was pretty soft. This one was, and to everyone's credit, they didn't outright bitch. They were just a little bit more surprised than anything in terms of the feedback I got. And I do agree it was a little bit of a surprise, but
Big
one
difference is that I'm still thinking of Green Bay defense as like a premium
yeah,
defense, and maybe
yeah,
other people aren't as much, and
yeah, yeah,
maybe that's it, or I mean, or maybe it's just the 10 dead cap. Maybe it's there. I again, I will say, I think I could have talked out the fab and could have got
right,
this for
right,
one fab
yeah,
thing. It probably would have
yeah, yeah,
been fine,
yeah.
but
I think it's the
but yeah, I don't
defense.
know. I
Defense is
guess
polarizing. Talent and like what they have on their team is one thing, but every kind of like middling score from a defense, you can kind of spin it both ways. Like you're like, oh, like they kind of got unlucky with not getting turnovers, and like they only got like 8 points, but the underlying metrics felt good. And then someone else could be like, oh, like that was a good matchup, and they only got 7 fantasy points. Like
yeah,
but they're not generating like turnovers. Like that limits kind of like they're up. Like like uh, for a $14 defense, like that difference makes a huge difference, right? Because if you think a defense is actually like a top one or two or three defense, $14 I think is fine, right? But if you think a defense is only like barely top 10 and it's 14, then you're thinking like, oh wow, like in a vacuum that's going to be hard to move. Like that shouldn't be something that like, you know, a lot of teams are going to be interested in, right? So I think that's honestly where a lot of people got caught up. Like certain people were like, are Packers even a good defense? And I was like, I don't know. Like I guess it depends on what you think of their outlook going forward. And yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is like, I don't think anyone knows. Like, defenses are especially so hard to like kind of pin down in terms of what you think they'll be. You kind of just have to make broad predictions and guesses on how matchups are going to play out, and you know how a team in 2 weeks can be a terrible matchup or it could be a great matchup, right? Like, if the Titans are a matchup that is scary, like semi scary to go up against in 2 weeks, I wouldn't be that surprised. And that's how quickly, things can flip on that side. So, um, yeah, I think that's the huge variability. And like, I think defenses is probably what a lot of people are getting caught up on. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Definitely, I think something that I'll try to keep an eye on and see. We'll see if Packers defense is plus, or if they're kind of
Yeah,
overrated. And
yeah, or
yeah,
end up on
and
waivers in a couple weeks. We'll
exactly, yeah,
see.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and you never know. Like both ways could happen, and like if they suck, then people are gonna be like, oh, I knew they sucked. And if they're good, then you're gonna be like, yeah, this is obviously a super talented defense. Why would, like, it'll be like judged in hindsight. So there's not much you can do other than kind of just wait to see the results. Right.
Well, that sounds good.
Yep.
Excited for this week. Feels like an exciting week here. I feel like there's a lot of teams kind of on the precipice right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think after this week, depending how it works out for certain teams, I think we'll start seeing teams at least move in certain directions. I think until now, people are still on pause for the most part on like what kind of plans they're making for the next couple of weeks, trade talks and stuff. But I think after this week, it might not unfold immediately, but teams will start kind of picking a direction or another, even if they kind of like slow play it up to the deadline. So yeah, I think that was a really good discussion about this week's trades. Um, yeah, and yeah, so I think since so many people have complaints about that trade, we'll see how it plays out for both sides. Like
check
if it
back.
saves your
Check back.
season, if it saves your season, like you're not gonna care about Braylon Allen and five fab or whatever.
Yeah,
And if it
yeah,
doesn't, then you're still not losing that much. So that's why I think if you think about it from Madison's point of view, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So. All right, thanks
yeah. I think.
for
Yeah.
yeah, no, go
All
on.
right. Good. Shooting.
All right,
See you
peace.
later. Later.